Ed, Lorraine, thank you very much for coming in today. No problem. So, shoot, what you got? Well, it's a case in London, in Enfield. Yeah, apparently there's some sort of poltergeist activity going on inside the house. We've got a few pieces of or a few documents and that sort of do show that actually there could be something to this one. But yeah, we just need you guys to go in and have a look, really. Cool. So, who got this documentation then? Have you got someone else already on it? Yes, yeah. The guys that do go and investigate paranormal activity usually are on it, and they have been in there for a few months now, and they've managed to get some quite decent material. So, sorry, you've got proof that this is happening, yeah? So, why are you calling us to go and do the same work again? Why can't you just go and do it? Well, I mean, there are some people sort of saying maybe it's fake. What we've got here is some photographs of the girl floating in the air, but it does look as if she's jumping out of her bed. Right. The poltergeist supposedly has been speaking through the girl on tape, and it is a different voice and a deeper voice. And, there have been ventriloquists that go in to say that, yeah, she could be throwing her voice and doing a really good level of ventriloquism, albeit at the age of 12. And there have been some concerns that actually the girls might just be faking it and just having a bit of a prank. So yeah, we're a little bit, don't really want to get involved in that, really. We don't really want the media circus that might come with embarrassing ourselves by backing this obvious hoax. But you want us to go in. You're quite happy for us to embarrass ourselves and be associated with this hoax, yeah? Well, no. Well, it's not really a hoax yet. We just don't know. We don't know if it is real or not. So why can't you just go in now? Why have I got to travel to London, or why have we got to travel to London and go and investigate this when you could just go and do the exorcism anyway? If there's nothing there, then no harm. But if there is a demon there or a poltergeist, then an exorcism would come in pretty handy, wouldn't it? Yeah. No, I see what you're saying, but a little bit busy, really. Got a mass later, so right. I suppose we're on our way to London, are we? So The Conjuring 2 is a movie released in 2016 starring Patrick Wilson and Vera Farmiga and directed once again by James Wan. Now, this movie is the direct sequel to the first Conjuring movie and again centres around Ed and Lorraine Warren, two well-renowned paranormal investigators who have in real life actually been investigating some high-profile cases, two of which are featured in this movie. This movie begins with a seance at the Amityville house where, if you guys don't know, honestly, have a look at it because it's one that is very, very controversial with regards to whether or not it is a hoax or whether it is a evidence of demonic possession of a person who's essentially gone around and murdered his family. What we do have on the back end of that is that a family have moved into the house, and because of ongoing or goings on throughout the house, they've fled in the middle of the night. And there is an argument as to whether or not this is real or whether it is a hoax, and it was just a case of getting the attention from the family as well. Now, what's interesting is the ties that the Amityville case has to this case, which is the Enfield Haunting in London, well known for being dubbed as the London equivalent of Amityville. But also it does come with the same controversies, with the fact of people arguing whether or not this was all a hoax or whether this was genuine or a genuine haunting. And to be honest, I mean, the film does do a very good job with showing both sides of the argument. But essentially, this whole movie is centered around a family that live in a house in Enfield. You have a single mother with several daughters and one young boy. And the haunting does centre around her 12-year-old daughter, Janet. Initially, we'd see the standard haunting elements of things moving without any explanation. There is a scene where a chest of drawers are moved. The mum tries to move it, and as documented in the real life documentation of this case, she was unable to move it as if something was on the other side of it, preventing her from being able to move it back in place. This all culminates in them seeking refuge with the neighbours, and the police are then called. And it is quite a famous testimony from the police officers where they attend the house. They can't see anything going on until a chair apparently lifts off the floor and moves down the corridor. We see that in this movie where the chair moves down and slots itself back at the dining table. The officers have tried to explain why this happened. Sort of, they've looked for wires and looked for any sort of deviations in the level of the floor, anything that could explain why this happened, and have been unable to do so. And that is quite a key strength in sort of the argument that this case is real. The fact that two police officers very early on went round, and police officers in the UK are sort of seen as very honest people, rightly or wrongly. But what we get in this movie is it starts off by showing just the house, just the haunting taking place, and we have Ed and Lorraine Warren as well doing the lecture circuit about their experiences with paranormal investigations. Now, what's key is that the Amityville case that's featured at the very beginning with the two Warrens involved in it has pushed them into the spotlight. So the media are very well aware of who they are, and the public are very well aware of who they are and what they do. But there's questions asked of them as to whether or not they're making everything up, whether they are tricking everybody just to get the fame that comes with it. And that follows them across to when they're brought into the Enfield case. So the Enfield case in itself is, there's speculations whether or not that is a hoax or made up, but that's only made worse when the Warrens are brought in as well. Now, again, it's all very much down to what you believe. If you believe in the paranormal, you're probably more likely to believe that this is a genuine case of a haunting. If you are dead set against any paranormal activity or anything paranormal, you probably are going to identify that this is a hoax. And it's really interesting because I believe in the paranormal side of it, but even for me, there are strengths on each side of the argument, and this movie does put forward the strengths of each argument, and it does play devil's advocate. And it's really interesting with that debate because even when the film's finished, even though you've seen essentially the account, this film does mainly show the account of the Warrens and the family that live inside the Enfield property. But even when you leave, you still are unsure as to whether or not this is in fact a true story, whether everything that you saw on screen is in fact how it happened in the way it happened. But just taking it as the movie, this, once again, James Wan brings his A game to this. The suspense in this is absolutely fantastic, and some of the effects in this are absolutely superb to the point where it's just creative genius in play. There's one scene in particular where they decide to test Janet when she's speaking, when she has the poltergeist speaking through her. She takes a sip of water and then says, I can't, the poltergeist won't do it with everybody watching me, which is, again, a suggestion that in actual fact this is all fake. However, the way it's portrayed in the movie is absolutely superb. She takes a sip of water, everyone turns around, and she's blurred in the background, and you see very subtly a shift in her figure where it goes from the 11-year-old or 12-year-old girl that sat in a chair, an oversized chair, to suddenly taking on a shape much larger and more that of an old man who apparently the voice belongs to. And all of that is absolutely incredible to the point where even knowing it's happening, you still cannot pinpoint the moment where that change takes place because it's so subtle. Once again, as in with the previous movie, there are no quick jump scares. There are no red herrings. There's nothing to take your attention from one side of the screen and then something pop out from the other. It is all suspenseful. It is just something that just builds you up to the point where you then start imagining the worst possible things that could happen on screen and scare you to your wit's end. And then finally it delivers the scare and you're almost relieved of the fact that that part is over, but it just keeps going and going. And the other interesting thing in this movie is that it it introduces the character of the nun, of Thalak, the demon, that's taken on the form of a nun to undermine the faith that Lorraine Warren has in the Catholic faith. And once again, it's another spin-off character, or it's another character that's introduced to this universe, which has then gone on to have the spin-off movies. And it's a quite nice tie to the spine of the universe, which is the Conjuring movies. And from that, you do get these characters spin off and create a larger universe around it. And all of that is, I really do like that when you do get these sort of smaller stories introduced to the larger sort of like base of the universe, and then it goes on to sort of spin off from there. And again, the investigation side of it that takes place is all fantastic in this. It's a perfect blend of horror, of mystery, investigation, all of that all pieced together to create a very, very good film. Everything is very easy to follow. There are some complicated aspects of it where you think it's a basic poltergeist haunting, when in actual fact there is a demon that's sort of the puppet master behind the initial haunting to basically bring everyone's spirit down and break them to the point where it can invade the house and start possessing people. And whilst that is almost sort of throws you for a loop, because you sit there and go, well, it's not as simple as I thought. It's very easy to follow because it's just introduced so nicely. And it's part of that is down to the portrayal of Ed and Lorraine Warren. Lorraine is that person who explains the possession element and why that demon is there and what their aim is. And Ed is that person to explain what the demon is and how it's impacting everybody, like why it's all taking place. All of that all blends together, and it's just brilliant. Once again, with these movies, there isn't really much I can criticize on it at all. I think this movie does a very good job with the tone of it, of just playing devil's advocate and showing both sides of the argument as to whether or not it's a hoax or real. It doesn't really take a side in that argument. It does sort of show everything from the Warrens' perspective and those inside the house as well, as it's meant to, in order to entertain us. It perhaps does exaggerate some of the ongoings on that were reported as well. But overall, it's a very entertaining movie, and one that I would say, once again, I keep coming back to again and again and again. So for me, once again, it's a 4-star review for this one. So that's my review of The Conjuring 2. What did you guys think about it? Have you seen it? Whatever you thought below, please pop it in the comment section. I'd also love to hear whether or not you're on the side of hoax or real, because that'll be an interesting debate to have. Thank you very much for watching my video. I will be back again to discuss more of the Conjuring universe, but until then, you guys take it easy, and I'll catch you on the next one.